anything with a vac, just be mindful there are parts, things that can hurt you, so if you're vacuuming or anything like that, don't put any kind of body parts or anything like that. I had a guy literally about 2 months ago, there was a rock that got caught up on the end of the suction tube, and before I could tell him, I see what he's trying to do. He grabbed a rag and thought he would grab the rock and pull it out, and I'm trying to tell him no, but he'd already put his hand down there, and luckily he had the rag, because it sucked the rag up in there and it scared him enough to jump back. So man, these things, they'll suck your arm up in there if you ain't careful, so be real careful with things like that. Another big safety thing, and this is kind of safety slash maintenance and taking care of the machine itself, the orange tip that's on the end of this thing, this is a pretty expensive part, and this is kind of what makes this thing go and makes the magic happen. That one is, there you go, sir. So this orange tip that is on here, I'm going to tell you this, you do have an extension. Most of the time, this one right here is going to be what you would need. But if you do need to get down a little deeper, you can actually put the extension on there. Let me try to hold this for me. So the end of this tip is going to shoot out, and what happens is the water is kind of going to be moving in like a circular motion. So a couple things to keep in mind. I'm really glad that they actually put the 90 on this instead of this thing being straight up. It's pretty nice. Just make sure everything's kind of snugged up, tightened down. Once you got everything done and you're using this thing, you're actually going to be moving this constantly. You don't want to be in one particular spot. The reason being is if you are potholing and you hit, PVC, something plastic, it's going to cut it, and it's going to create a hazardous, environment in a hurry, depending on what you're cutting into. So, and not to mention you might go back and fix something. So always have the end of your wand moving. The other big thing to keep in mind, whoever is vacuuming, actually doing the suctioning, while this guy is doing the potholing, the one job you've got is to make it to where that guy can see what he's cutting. I've seen guys that'll fill the hole up with water and then he'll plunge it and try to suck it out. You can do what you want, but the problem is that I'm beating a $600 nozzle up against the ground trying to make it work, and I can't see what I'm hitting. Well, if I'm down in that sludge and it ain't sucked out, and all of a sudden I start hitting a line of some sort, I may cut right through that thing and not know it because I can't see. So if you're the one that's actually got the suction tool, you don't want to stay in so far on top of it you can't move it or can't see it, but you do want to be in the hole enough to be able to pull that out of that hole, keep it clean where you can actually keep cutting and do what it needs to do. Okay? Outside that, this is going to be just like a pressure washer that you would use, wash your car. I would recommend it. Guys, trust me, they tell me I'm very serious about very little, but don't point this at nobody and try to shoot them with it. I got videos of me at a daggone back of my car, and my son's been over helping me, and I take the air hose at the car wash and I'm shooting him in the hind end. It's just my personality. We're guys, so we're gonna play around, but this will hurt somebody, so don't play around with that. You definitely want to be safe when you're using this thing. Mark like this, when you're using this, like I was saying, it's got it now to where it's pretty long, but instead of having to hold on to one side or any of that, you've actually got a pretty good handle and grip on this thing. Again, if you are the one doing the suctioning, a couple things to remember: you don't want to plunge straight down. Think of a vacuum. Again, if you're vacuuming in your car, a lot of times it's best if you leave a little bit of space so it can pull that in. So if I'm going to vac this out while somebody is potholing, instead of going straight, I actually going to leave a little bit of an angle on this thing so it can actually pull that up in flow and then actually turn it back on, and it'll be blowing out instead of soaking. That'll kind of help with some unclogs, but it's going to shoot some stuff out. If there's mud and dirt up in there, it's probably going to push it out. You want to be careful, because if there are smaller rocks and things like that, and it forces it out, again, on the safety side of things, it could be pretty hazardous. A lot of people don't even use the reverse flow. If this thing stops sucking, generally where you're going to get your clogs is going to be anywhere there's some sort of an elbow. So where something's connecting to something else, that's usually where you're going to have it. So if I'm sucking it up and I've not put my X at the bottom of that thing, and it's picked up a rock this big, it's going to come up. Right here's my first one. That's going to be very easy to get to. You're going to have another connection here. I'm going to have to check here, because it's probably somewhere wedged in there. We had one up in Kingsport, as a matter of fact. We picked up a big piece of rock, and it had made it all the way to the turn, and we actually had to take everything apart, take a screwdriver and a hammer and hit it to be able to bust that rock up to be able to send it on through. Now, obviously, you don't want to do any of that stuff until your vac is completely turned off. You never want to start unhooking stuff and taking things apart while the vac is running. Okay? So, a couple things. We'll start up front as far as the hydraulic jack. You're welcome. What you'll tell Bright Ridge you're welcome, because if it didn't have that, it'd break your back sitting here trying to jack this thing up. Why somebody orders these things without one, beyond me. But you do have it. The engine has to be running in order for that to work. But you'll be able to raise and lower this thing so much easier to be able to hook up. Of course, you've got your pedal style, you've got your chains, and of course you got your brake release here, where if that pulls, it's going to lock the brakes up. Got a toolbox on the front of this thing. Inside here you can store whatever you want, but there is the big adapter for the back. So if you're to a place to where you want to direct the flow of when you are discharging your pickup, instead of just opening that door and dumping it out. Now the good part, I don't think the other one had it, but if you notice on the back, this one's got that flap, so it kind of will direct that, and it makes cleanup a lot easier. The back of your trailer is not just caked full of junk. That'll make it easier when you open that door, but this piece you can actually put on the back of that, and you can clamp on your hose, and you can direct that to a particular place if you need to go there. So you got that there. You've got two sets, one for each set of wheels. The great part about this thing, we've got one set on already. We'll throw these in here. Just for your mechanics, if anything ever happened. But you do have a battery disconnect here. It's going to be stored for any period of time, cold or weather. I'd turn that thing off. As far as usage, so you got your key, you got your lights, you do have an adapter here that you can plug up some stuff. You've got fuses, and then of course this is going to be your control panel to be able to turn your water on, and this will control the pressure of the water that comes out. Most of the time, every customer I've ever had, they'll turn that all the way up, and you just kind of leave it there. So it's not very difficult. Turn it on. You may have to turn it here, let it sit for a minute. You'll kind of hear that start to warm up a little bit. And then of course you're going to just turn it on. For the time being, I'm not going to let this build up a lot of pressure. And break that seal, that way that thing's just not sitting there. Believe it or not, it will actually make it difficult to open that back door because you've got so much suction building. So I generally, and I wouldn't do anything around that, but I would try to break that seal a little bit, or keep my back open or something, so I'm not just constantly doing that pressure. This is telling you about like the DPF on this thing, where you got like that, basically anything 25 horsepower or above, EPA says it has to have a system that'll burn off carbon. So you can dismiss that. the door, and you can operate the boom either manually or with the remote control. Okay? Now with the remote control, I'm going to have to figure this one out. It's going to start to flash. This is where you'll change it from boom to your tank itself. You've actually got idle over here. You can see it. This is where you would turn on your water. So if you don't want to do a manual here, you can do it there.
Somebody could be standing back there home.
What's that? Somebody could be standing back here operating. Yes, yeah. So you can do these things and you can see the operations as they're listed. This would be for your boom sliding in and out. This would be for your boom to twist around. This would be for your tank to go up and down. And this would be for your back door to swing out to be able to open. So pretty simple. It's got the emergency stop. If something happens, you hit that thing, it's going to kill everything. But it's not too bad to be able to use. If I want to, go with my boom, and I'm actually going to go up. That's hitting this button here because I've swapped it up here. So this button and this button is dual function. You got boom, you got tank. Right now I'm in boom, so I went up. I can go down. You can see that little roller looking thing will set down in that carriage. You're good to go. If I needed to raise my tank, I would swap up here, and I should be able to raise my tank. Okay. If I needed my boom to extend, which I'm going to raise it. So I need to go out. I can go out. And then if I needed to curl it around this way, I would actually use the from this way.
So we're going to sync the remote. It's going to turn green. And now we can start the motor. You can rev up the motor on that side right here. You can toggle the boom and tank, operate the boom or the tank.
Toggle switch on top. Let's see here, tank and boom.
You can lower the tank right now. Yep. Building pressure. And you can raise the tank up. Yep.
Can I pick up gravel and stuff like that with small gravel, little things like that? Yeah, you probably can, but here's what I would do. I would take my regular one and I would wet it down because this thing ain't set up to do dry stuff. You know, so you want to be picking up wet stuff. If I was going to be picking up pea gravel or something to that degree, and that's all I was trying to pick up, I would probably have a guy sitting there spraying it while I was vacuuming.
So we have a separate one that's not the roto tip.
So you've got those, of course, your hoses here on the back side. This is your antifreeze.
Okay.
So your antifreeze you'll take the top off. You can use RV type antifreeze. It's pretty expensive. You can also use like a windshield washer fluid. I've seen a lot of people just use windshield washer fluid because it's a lot cheaper. because it does have a little bit of, actually, I found, I didn't know that, but it's got a little bit of that RV antifreeze in it. But you do want something, especially when it starts getting, you know, below 32, you don't want these lines freezing up. You don't have to use a ton of that stuff through your system. With your antifreeze, if it's, you just want to visually glance, I would probably put a little more in this than what's actually in there, but that's probably plenty for now. You can follow your lines out and you can actually see where these things come on, and there's ons and offs. So you would actually turn on your antifreeze. Once you've got that turned on, you would turn your water on. And then once I've turned my water on, I would spray through the end of that until I start to see some foam or soapy looking stuff coming out the end. And then I know my entire system is coated with that antifreeze. Once you've done that, you set it up, she's good to go. You know, nothing really after that that you have to do, so to speak.
How do you drain the tanks if you've got the tanks?
Yeah, and you can use this.
That's what I was saying. You'd have to drain the tanks, and those are.
This one up allow that to come in, and this, open this one, so it'll go through the wand, right?
Yes, yes. And, you know, as far as they did put the black tank on these, which is good. It kind of cuts down with algae and stuff like that. You can fill these from the top, or on the other side, you'll notice there's like a hose looking thing coming off. You can hook up a fire hose to that thing and fill it. It will fill both sides. So you can fill from the other side and it'll fill both tanks. Operations, and if you look at it, it's going to show you what you need to do. This one right here will actually be the function control. So the top one is going to be for your boom. It has the picture of the boom. The center one, it shows the door cracked open. So the center is going to be your door. And the bottom one will actually be the tank. So whichever position that is in is what is going to be controlled. So if I'm going to control my boom, I'm going to go to the top. I'm going to find my picture of my boom here, and I can see that I'm up and down. I'm going to be in and out, and this one's going to rotate it out to me and rotate it back if I need to do that. If I swap it to the door, I go to the door, this is going to be open, this is going to be closed. Now I would always go to the boom or to the tank first, and then I would actually at that point in time use this one. It's multifunction as well. It'll take it up, that way you can raise this up. Before you can open that back door, there's a pin on the side. These need to stay in place the whole time you're using it. This can kind of get in the way, so you may have to actually, you know, work around that. But these need to stay in place until you're ready to open that door. That way nobody accidentally hits this and opens it up. So anytime you're using the back, always check first to make sure these pins are in place. Yes.
That's the lock.
That's it. That's basically a door lock. Because this is a little bit harder to get to, but there's a piece back here you pull and twist, and it'll release this to where you can pull it out.
Okay. So lock the hose reel before driving.
Make sure that's locked up. This one or to your regular wash nozzle thing, and this one's primarily just for cleanup. That's going to be just to wash the tank out, to clean up tools.
Now on your antifreeze, that's going to be coated.
This is what's
when you
going to
run
come
that
out.
through.
When
And
you turn it, the pressure back on, it's going to send the antifreeze.
Yes.
That's the one thing I want to make sure of as far as.
Yes. So it's going, and that's this. It's all going to come through here, and like I say, you can coat everything by just spraying through, and it's going to run everything through your lines and your system so that it don't freeze up. That's the biggest.
Do the wands specifically hold any water that you got to make sure you get both wands antifreezed through them?
Say that first part again.
The wands themselves, would they hold water to where if you didn't spray it out of one wand, would you need to grab and swap and spray it through the other?
You know, but
Just
if you're
as
going to hold
precaution.
it, that metal,
Yeah.
it's probably.
I mean, this one's sitting
This is
vertical,
gonna-
that one's horizontal.
It's going to coat the inside of this pretty good. Those, yeah. Those tank, you mean as far as waterproofing them?
Just drain them out, I reckon.
Or not waterproof,
Range,
but
I guess, is
this down here is going to be to actually try to, when you raise your tank, if you need it directed to a particular point, that's where it's going to let all that come out of. Or once you've raised it up, you open the door and it's going to hit this thing and try to direct it back into this point. Okay.
Joey, when it's more
The other thing is after several uses, you're going to notice that sight glass is going to start to get coated, and it's going to be pretty hard to realize, hey man, I can't really tell how much is in this thing. So periodically you can take this off, keep your hand on here because this will fall. Take that sight glass out, just clean it real good, wash it off, and you can put it right back in and it'll kind of look like this again. May not look exactly like that again, but because it's new. So you've got 32 foot of hose right here, and then of course you've got quite a bit of hose that comes off, and then you're able to go, out to where you need to go. We did bring the extra hose. He said this is filtered right here, right? Well, one's a filter.